To the PSTA's Finance Committee meeting. It is November 15th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I am Jeff Gow, your committee chair, and I represent the city of Dunedin. Starting on my left, I'd like to go around the room and just acknowledge who all the board members are.
Good morning, Vince Cox, Pinellas County.
I was waiting for the other board members. Josh Schulman, citizen representative for the city of St. Petersburg.
And our CEO is?
Brad Miller with PSTA.
Very good, very good. All right, now it's time for public comment. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak? Anybody on Zoom? We will bring it back to the board. Okay, presentation of PSTA Access Program. So I'm going to turn this over to Brad Miller.
Thank you.
Oh, come on, it was just working.
There it goes. Yeah, okay, good. So, good morning. At the committee's request last month, we put this at the very beginning of the agenda to make sure we covered it. And I'm going to give the presentation because I think it's sort of a high-level just update on access improvements, and it really just speaks to the concerns and I think really positive involvement by Commissioner Cox and the attention that you've drawn to this. I want to thank you for looking at this PowerPoint and sort of helping in developing it. And so what I'm going to show you is sort of what the concerns, I think, and Commissioner Cox, you can chime in, of course, but the things that he's been addressing and then how we think we've kind of like reached a milestone where we're able to move forward now. So, as you know, Commissioner Cox has probably brought up PSTA access issues over the last 18 months since we started implementing fares and going full bore into mobility on demand. A high-level view of what is happening with PSTA access program. And then this is what generally I look at, and I think the board should look at. Ridership is up. We hit to an all-time high on PSTA access. We had over 400,000 rides in fiscal year 23. That's the highest it's ever been. The last 2 years, the budget, it's been the most under budget line item in the PSTA whole budget. And this is the most important thing. This graph is from the American Bus Benchmarking Group. This is the customer satisfaction of PSTA's access program in comparison to 15 other or a dozen other cities. PSTA customers are the most satisfied paratransit customers in the benchmarking cohort, which is really the reflection of the United States. They are incredibly satisfied. This survey was done this past summer. The way you read this is a standard question on surveys, Net Promoter Score. Would you recommend, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you recommend PSTA access to a friend or family? If you gave a 9 or 10, that's the green. If you give the orange, it's a 7 or 8, and then blue is the detractor, 0 to 6. PSTA pretty substantially is better. Our customers are happier. Now, why is that? I mean, there's lots of, I think there's a real dedication by so many of our contractors and our staff, but also the mobility on demand, the real-time service that we provide, I think is a key factor. On-time performance recently has been improving. Complaints are down. Efficiency has recently been improving as we take advantage more of the software, and the software gets better, it learns from itself. The software is now accepted, substantially upgraded. We have, for the first time, real-time texting to our customers and an app. Just like when you order your pizza, you get texts about how your pizza is about to be delivered or in the oven or whatever. Now that is what our customers get. They never got that before. Now that's a positive and negative. Sometimes they can confirm that their vehicle, that their ride is not going to be there on time because they get a text and saying, your ride's not going to be here for 47 minutes or something like that. And I would say employee morale is better than at least I've seen it in a very long time. I thought it was such a great thing that they did. The folks over at Transidev, one of our major contractors, were so excited about PSA winning the System of the Year award that they held a party for their employees, all their employees come in and have barbecue, and then invited PSDA. So this is a picture of us over at their operation. So, sort of the crux of the, I think Commissioner Cox would agree, the issues that he has been discussing at board meetings and the committee meetings, and what is changed about PSA access is not the goal. I think everyone is on the same page as far as we want the best possible service for our customers. That's not the goal. It's just the way in which PSA access is being provided. And it stems around this idea of having a human dispatcher controlling the whole show. I think, and as we've transitioned away from that, that has positives and it has negatives. It certainly has challenges. This is the oldest picture I could find on the internet of dispatchers.
What I wanted to say, that's not their dispatch.
No, it's not. It's not. This is the old school dispatch with the pizza.
Yeah,
And
I
these
noticed the
these
pizza.
people, the way all kinds of fleets and cabs and certainly paratransit was done for historically is the human dispatcher used a computer to organize the trips, but they were in control. They basically scheduled, and if Mr. Gao, you canceled your ride, and then Brad Miller called and said my doctor's appointment was late, that person would reconfigure all the rides manually, and it was effective. If you think about your own use of Uber, there's positives about Uber because it comes right away. You don't have to make a reservation like under this old system. But the negative, which I just experienced in Tallahassee, is sometimes you have a big group of Dan Saraki and Brad Miller and Jamie Robinson, and then a little sports car shows up, and you have to jam all in there. That happens, or a pickup truck shows up with all of our luggage getting rained on in the back. And there's no human to complain to. When you can't call Uber and complain and get a different vehicle or anything like that. And that is the negative about having a computerized dispatching, is there's not a human interface. There's not as much of a human interface. So what we've been trying to do with the software is how can we keep the benefits of a computerized dispatch managing all these real-time rides that are going on in Pinellas County, over 1,000 a day. How can we manage all that, but when things go wrong, allow the dispatchers, a human, to inject themselves and fix problems as best they can. So that's what we've been sort of debating, I think, over the last, say, year, is trying to figure out what is the best way to get the advantages of a human controlling things versus the computer controlling things. There's the suggestion that Commissioner Cox had about increasing mobility on-demand fares, and then the shared goal, I think we all have, of increasing efficiency as best we can with shared rides. I joked that this is Bonnie. This is our director of mobility. No, it's not. The idea of going completely manual is not logical, and I think Commissioner Cox knows that too. Now we have 7 contractors. We have 2/3 of our rides are real time, are happening right now. they're calling up or they're using the app to schedule the rides. Going to a manual dispatch is just not the way, the modern way. It used to be the way, but when we put the bid out for paratransit, we didn't get any bids that had one company doing the whole thing, one company buying a fleet of cars and providing ambulatory trips. They all wanted to sub out to some kind of TNC kind of operation. So going to a full manual dispatching is not really practical anymore, but we still want to have in our software an ability for a human to interject as needed. When things happen all the time. There's accidents, there's traffic, there's late doctor's appointments, or people want to get picked up early, or all sorts of things happen. And especially on a paratransit with people who really have a lot of needs, there does need to be a way for the human interface. The idea of increasing fares on Mobility on Demand. Right now, Mobility on Demand is a lower fare, a slightly lower fare, to encourage its use because it is lower cost per ride to PSTA. And so the idea, and this is what our consultants recommended, was, well, PSTA is saving money every time someone takes a Mobility on Demand ride versus goes on a traditional paratransit ride. We're saving costs, so shouldn't the user also share in those cost savings as well? Maybe sort of as a policy issue. I think Commissioner Cox was coming from the perspective, well, we would generate more money if we could increase the fare, and we are allowed to increase the fare on Mobility on Demand. We are not allowed to increase the fare on PSA Access because of the ADA regulation. So fully either implementing a too high fare or eliminating the Mobility on Demand program would cost PSA more money because they would switch. We think a certain percentage of the trips would switch back to regular access, and that would cost PSA money. That's not really being ever really proposed. And then this past a month ago, the PSA board voted to try at first to manage Mobility on Demand by increasing the fare after a large number of trips per day. And so we just started doing that, and we'll have some results soon of whether that's working, whether that's mitigating the demand and the growth in Mobility on Demand. And then third, something I think will be a big bonus. I know Transdev is very excited about it. Transdev right now only provides access trips, pre-scheduled trips for the traditional way. And then all these other trips are being sent to Uber and Lyft and Taxi, and they have the largest fleet of wheelchair accessible vehicles in the county. So can we put them on the Mobility on Demand program too, also? And they're very interested in this. Now they're different than Uber and Lyft in that they have pre-scheduled drivers, like PSTA has. Well, like the drivers work shifts, and they report to work at the company, and then they go and they drive during their 8-hour shift. Uber and Lyft, as you know, is not like that. You can be on your couch and then decide to go work for an hour or not work. And that, so it's a little trickier to get Transdev to do Mobility on Demand trips because the demand changes, but we're working that out with them now. And then, last but not least, is this idea of increasing the number of shared rides. Our contract with Transdev pays them by the hour. So if they carry one person or they carry 10 people, we pay the same amount of money, so it would be more efficient if we could carry more people in the same vehicle. That is great in concept, and certainly anytime, say, I am going to the doctor, and Commissioner Cox is going in the same direction to the doctor, we should put us both on the same vehicle to take us, there. But what often happens is we're not going to the exact same location, and then the customers are never very happy especially when they go in the wrong direction. If they get picked up and then they're trying to go, say, to St. Petersburg from here, and then they are taken to Clearwater first, and then to St. Petersburg. That does hurt customer satisfaction. It saves PSTA money, but what we're trying to do is make the software and make our staff better at figuring out the best trips to share. That the software can not make people go all over the county, which has happened in the past, but efficiently combine the trips in the best way we possibly can. And that is going to take time. I think the system is getting better and better at that, and that's why you see the efficiency number creeping up a little bit. But as long as the mobility on demand rides are more popular and lower cost, this is probably manageable at the efficiency level that we have now. My final thing I just want to say is that I think we all share the goal of constant improvement, and I think that has been shown. I mean, we have Bonnie and her team have been working diligently with the Spare team, the software team, and the folks at TransDev too, to work all this out and make it better. It's been a journey. We were the first transit agency to use Spare for traditional paratransit in addition to mobility on demand, as she presented, the one enchilada concept, full enchilada. But now they've gotten a couple other cities. Austin, Texas, namely, is trying to do this, what we're doing. And they're having the same sort of bumps in the road that we had in Austin, but Spare is putting in change improvements down there that then we get, and vice versa. So that has been, it's constantly upgrading. But they still need to do more stuff, where we're still trying to get them to have better mapping, as Commissioner Cox knows, and estimating of traffic. That would be better. Adding TransDev to the Mobility on Demand program will be better for our customers. And then the whole other part of the PSTA Access program is the eligibility process of how we approve people to be on PSTA Access. And we want to, an idea we had was to audit those decisions and to make sure that we're having the right people using the service. So those are all things that we're working on now. Constantly trying to make the PSTA Access better. That concludes my presentation.
There you go. Good job.
I'm going to look to you.
Look to Josh first.
Any questions?
So I had some questions, but I honestly, I would actually like to hear Vince's thoughts, because that may answer some of my questions,
Okay.
or leave new ones, since you have more experience and focus on this area.
And Brad, thank you for this presentation. What I've learned in the last few weeks, actually, is there are improvements that are happening right now with Spare. And they're good improvements, and they're things that TransDev are initiating, and we met last week, Bonnie, that fellow back there with the flat top, Greg, and with Tom Tibbetts also, who's a bald-headed guy in that picture right there. He's the general manager of TransDev. And I learned a lot in that meeting too, when it came to some of my concerns that I had before, where TransDev was not lacking they were lacking an ability prior to be able to actually look at a trip and change that trip. Say, for example, somebody gets ready here, and they were having a difficult time previously to change that trip to accommodate that person. Now it's more streamlined, and that's very important too. That's the manual part of routing, which you don't, like Mr. Miller said, you don't want to have to sit there and do the entire route manually because the computer will do so much work for you. And then, but there are times when you can intervene and it will make it just more efficient for
Yeah.
everyone. So these things are happening right now, and it makes me pleased to, to hear these things. And, but I thought we had a good meeting, at breakfast. And, I'm just, I'm pleased. I just want to put it that way. And another, I come back to this MOD fair thing. I had another thought on that. Instead of doing it even, like $1, make $3.50 the MOD to $4.50, just like it is with the access. How about 50 cents? Make it $4. And then we get an additional 100,000 a year. It's a thought anyway. I'm just looking to generate a little bit of revenue, because I don't say I'm disturbed, but I really hate to see us cut any kind of fixed route if we any additional funding we could get, I'd just like to see that happen. But as far as it concerns the ability for Spare Labs to perform this service, I believe they're now made a lot of changes that are good and positive, and it reflects in just exactly what Mr. Miller showed us in this presentation right here.
Sure.
Okay, so I appreciate that, and I will say if Vince is happier about things, then I'm automatically happier about things, because I defer in this area to his knowledge and judgment. And I will also be honest, I struggle with the difference between MOD and Access and all the different vendors, and I mean, I've been on the board for a long time, and still in my brain, they all just kind of mush together, so presentations like this help.
100% of our customers.
Well,
They don't
so
know.
presentations like this, I feel like I actually understand a little bit more. Not a lot, a little bit more, but so I appreciate that, and that's a deficiency on my side. So I say that because my questions may highlight that deficiency a little bit more. And these are not necessarily in any particular order, just order in which I thought of them. So you're talking about tracking with real-time, there's real-time text messaging and through the app, and do we have or can we have the ability to actually track the vehicle that's being assigned?
The customer does.
Okay, so they
Yeah.
can see the little, like, it'll be here, and then they,
Yeah.
of course, see it turn the wrong way, and wonder where it's
on the
going.
app.
Okay, so it's not just text messaging, it's, they
Yeah,
can.
they can see, if they're using the app, where the vehicles are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And we talked a little bit about this in our one-on-one meeting, but is there an ability for people on using PSTA access through Transdev, right? So scheduled routes to opt. So the idea there is that you get more folks into one vehicle to bring down the cost of using it. Is there an opportunity, or should there be an opportunity to have the user pay a little bit more, giving them the option to pay a little bit more to use that scheduled service to be more direct? Right, so that they can choose, like, I really need to be at my doctor's appointment at this time, so I need it to be more.
I want to guarantee I get a
Direct.
straight
Right.
ride. Yeah, I mean, that's possible.
Yeah, it's purely as an
Think
option,
it's
because one of the
possible,
things, some of the things we discussed was, when it comes to this sort of stuff, you can only control a couple of things, like when someone's dropped off, you can make that a hard time, in which case when they're picked up could be any time, it could be 3 weeks earlier, and you're just driving around with them forever. Or you could do the pickup time is hard coded in, and then the drop off is loose because there might be other people on board, and so we don't know exactly when the drop off is going to be. And from what you're saying is that the customer satisfaction would go up if they were able to have both, which I realize is a point to point, right? That's individual transit, not mass transit, right? Like, so if I'm taking a fixed route bus, I don't get to tell the bus driver, it'd be easier if you went, because I'm trying to go over here, if you didn't just finish your route all the way down there first to then go over here. You have to ride the bus with everyone else. So I'm trying to think of ways to increase customer satisfaction and or increase awareness over how these things operate so that they feel better about what's happening. So I also don't know if there's an opportunity to pick in, like, so if you're scheduling, it's, I want to be dropped off at this time. I'm willing to be picked up whenever you need me to. Right, I know we had, one of the community members was talking about getting to church on time. Well, if you need to be at church at a certain time, then see if we can build that option in which case it might mean they need to be picked up an hour and a half earlier than they expected, because they're riding a mass transit
True.
option. Or I need both to be correct, on time, in which case, can I pay more for that? So, I don't know if any of those things will work, could work, but it seems like those are the decision points as a consumer that you have to make. And so if we give more of those choices in a way that works for us as an organization to the consumer, then we make them happier, because they're in control of what they're doing. One of the things that also was interesting in my mind is, when people are booking these things, especially using the app, can we show cost comparisons, right? Like, so if you do it this way, it's this. If you do it that way, it costs this. If you were to be on an Uber or a taxi, like a general fare for this would be, $38, right? So, letting people know and see that, let them pick and choose what works best for them. But I think oftentimes they're working within a knowledge vacuum. They don't know. They just know what they pay, and they don't know what they would have paid had they chosen a different option, right? So
kind of like we do on our health insurance, where we're showing the PSTA contribution to your health
Or
insurance.
you used Uber as an example when you got to Tallahassee. When you opened the app, you had 4 choices, or 5 choices potentially. It's Tallahassee, you may have only had one. But you could have taken the small car, or the premium car, or the one that has more baggage, or right. So and there's different costs and with each one, or how long it's going to take to get there, right? So as a consumer, you had a choice as to which ones fit your need, or you perceived to fit your need at the time, and you got to select that. And so you're giving that sort of power over choice takes away some of the, clearly if a pickup truck shows up, then it doesn't, but it at least shifts that back to the consumer, like that's what you chose. You were given options in one spot, and given knowledge about what those things cost, and then let people make an individual determination. We do the same thing, the transit app does that with routes on fixed route, right? So if I say I'm going from here to here, it doesn't say here's the bus, right? It says, well, you could walk over to this bus, take this bus to that one, connect over here, and then you're there. Or if you want to leave 8 minutes later, you can do this one over here. And so you get to choose, okay, well, I like this version of this routing the best. I'm going to choose that. And so I think if we try to work in those sorts of option points for the consumer, one, it'll help them understand our system, not just their ride, but our system, and also make them happier and allow them the opportunity to really pick the transit option that fits their need for that particular point in time. I realize that started off as a question, but it ended up in a speech. So that was the other question. A question I did have. So is mobility on demand, right? You call up, you say, I need a ride. Is that single user vehicle then?
Yes.
Can
Ubers,
we,
Lyfts, and the taxi are all single.
okay,
people.
so that's where all of those go.
Yeah. Or wheelchair transit, and then even transit in the future, it will be pretty much one person per ride.
So if
for
we're
each-
talking about adding TransDev, which has better vehicles for different needs, but also a higher capacity, maybe we can also think about adding mobility on demand with a option to add other riders,
Well,
right? Like, so a van pool feature, right? I need to go from here to here, and I'm willing, I can click a button saying, if it'll drop my cost, I'm willing to potentially see if there's other riders that can join me, right? So again, just trying to think differently, right? So if I have to go to dialysis every couple of days, and I meet someone who's there, and I realize that they live 3 blocks over, right? Now that might be a scheduled thing, And so it probably wasn't the best example. But, you know, you can, if you, just like a normal carpool would work, it's, you call up and you say, like the T-bar to van pool, right? You call up and say, I'm going from here to here, and they match you with other people. Okay, can we add that sort of option if people are looking to lower their cost and potentially be a little bit more flexible on their time, but still be on demand? And all of this can only happen with computers, right? It can't happen with, you know, you'd have to have an individual dispatcher for every person to,
Yeah.
you know, like a personal assistant scheduling their day. So, I don't know if any of this is possible. I don't know if any of
Might
this
be
really
possible.
makes sense. But I also feel that it's best, especially if we're talking about making changes or adjustments or understanding these things, is to throw out as many ideas to then work through them. Like, does that make sense? Does it not? Or that was, in a perfect world, that's awesome, but this is not a perfect world. There's, that technology doesn't exist yet. I'd like to make us give more knowledge and options to our riders, because I think that'll go a long way to helping them understand how the system works. Because I've sat through these presentations a ton of times, and I still struggle with what does it mean, how does it work, why would they want this versus that. And oftentimes, in everything we do in life, we often say, well, why don't they just, you know, and what I've tried to remind myself over time is that no matter what organization it is, usually there's a good reason behind it, I just don't know it, right? So be a little bit less critical of, they're doing things not the way that I would do them, but they're doing it because I don't know the 18 other things that they know. That if I knew all those 18 things, I'd be doing it the same way they're doing it. And so the more we give that knowledge to consumers, the better it'll be.
One piece of information that I think some regular users of PSA Access would love, but we do not provide. Every day, there's this little dance in the morning where the pre-scheduled rides on PSA Access going to, not Mobility on Demand, but Access, ambulatory rides, they first get allocated to the taxi, Bay Area Metro, so it's a nice single ride, to their destination. And then to USERV, which is a TNC. It is a TNC, but of higher training that is a subcontractor to TransDev. But it has workers that are gig workers that are just at home, and they have to accept or decide if they want to go to work today, and they don't have to. And that seems to be the most variable thing in the whole system is a user's workforce on a given day. It could be great, and then or if it's low, after a certain amount of time that nobody accepts the trip over at user, this is all computerized. The trips flow over to TransDev to pick up the slack. Every trip has to be provided, and then TransDev has to scramble around every morning to make sure they have enough drivers to, if a bunch of user drivers sleep in, then they have to wake up all their drivers to come in. And then this affects the customer, because the customer loves USERV, because it's a straight ride. They know if they win the lottery and a user driver wakes up and picks them up, it'll go right to their destination and they'll be on time. If it gets sent back to TransDev, it's Russian roulette. It might be a straight ride, or it might be a shared ride, which they do not want. So I think there's like you said, like the customers all have their own motives. Some might want to be cost conscious, but a lot are trying to get to their destination as directly as possible on time. So we've been trying to work on that too. I mean, Commissioner Cox knows there's a lot of details in how we can make that better. How we can make sure we have enough drivers with enough notice from user.
So how are we doing that?
Well, we just expanded the notification from 2 to 4 hours. That basically 4-hour notice back to TransDev of how many rides they're going to have that user was not going to provide. Seeing if that makes things better, more efficient.
Wow. When you were saying that, I was thinking 3 days, right? Like, committing to working days in advance. And then, if employees can't hold to their commitments, then they go to the end of the line. Like, just like, we have a hierarchy here for routes based on tenure. Like if you show up and you work and you're reliable, then you get more of what you're looking for. If you don't, then
Well,
you
the core driver shifts for transit are pretty static, right? And then this is just on the increment. And then we have a peak demand. You know, there's a peak, kind of like the morning rush hour and the evening rush hour, and then things get really tight.
Is it,
Yeah.
and I apologize, Mr. Chair, I'm just running the show here. Is it possible just to instead start with Transdev as the ride, and then put it out, right? So they're part of the basic schedule. Is it easier to have them on the schedule, and I don't know, but it's easier to have them on the schedule and then have them removed from the schedule because a U-Serve driver's available, versus, or is it easier
Well,
to
I mean,
have
the
it on
user
here
is like half the
with
price. A user is cheaper for PSTA by a lot.
I understand, but
And so is the taxi.
And I understand, and I realize that's the goal, but I'm trying to think, of operationally, right? So is it easier, instead of making Transdev scramble and then mess with their routes every morning to try to figure out how to fit in these new riders that weren't
Yeah.
expected to be there, is to put them in there first, and then allow them to get pulled out as you serve, right, win the lottery, as you said, like, you know, as they're able to, same ridership, right? The same number of U-Serve trips and drivers are available. It's just how are we scheduling them, right? So right now, we're trying to get them into the individual rides first. And you're saying we're scrambling to try to then, when that doesn't happen because of the notice, we're trying to put them into the mass rides. Well, what if we flip that the other way around? I don't know.
Possible.
That
I'm
might
sure
be
the
most
answer is no.
ridiculous thing.
I mean-
I'm not even sure I believe what I
Okay.
just said.
One, this is a problem that we did not create. Remember, U-Serve is a subcontractor to Transdev. They decided on this,
Mhm.
and it's kind of a frustration of mine that when they did not figure out a better way. This is up to them, but really, it's been Bonnie's job to figure all this out, not the big Transdev company. They decided it was so much better when CareRide had all the cars, because then if they had a problem with driver attendance or anything like that, they could shuffle around just within their own company. But there's this whole subcontractor thing. That's one of challenge. But this has been an ongoing thing since the opening of the contract on July 1st, 2021. That it has been managed. It's better. It's a lot better now than it used to be.
Can I just, maybe this will clarify for you, Josh, and for everyone else here, that U-Serve is a TNC, like Brad said, but it's more sophisticated. The drivers have to comply with the ADA regs because it's an ADA-driven program, meaning that they have to have sensitivity training, do the drug testing, the CPR first aid, the physicals, all that's involved with it. And so, as Brad said, that the daily, in the evening, all the trips are sent over to all the different providers, all right, to Van, Bay Area Metro, to Lyft, and so on and so forth, and to U-Serve as well. Then there's certain trips that they cannot take. They can't take individuals under 18 years old. So that goes automatically over to Access, meaning Transdev. And so there's a lot of shuffling that has to be done when they figure out the schedule. Transdev does. And I think they do a good job at it. And U-Serve typically takes about 150 a day, somewhere in that realm. And then the overflow does go to Transdev. And they can accommodate it with their wheelchair vans, which they have seats in those. They also have a few vehicles that are cutaways, which are vehicles that,
More seats.
can take a wheelchair and about 10 other individuals. But I think it's managed well. But one thing we have to remember too, in this dispatch part of this, each provider has their own dispatch. Lyft has their own dispatch. Uber has their own dispatch, U-Serve has their own dispatch, Wheelchair Transport their own dispatch, and so all the providers have their own dispatch, and they're efficient, they're very efficient. What I was always getting hung up on was that Spare just ain't up to speed, but Spare is now coming up to speed, which I think is very important. It's gonna help this operation, and I think will save PSTA money, because the more trips actually that TransDev can do will save PSTA money, because they are paid hourly. And if they can do these efficiently, it's gonna benefit PSTA. So I think we're on the right track, and let's just keep doing what we're doing.
I appreciate that, and these comments are not meant to say that we're not on the right track. It's just thoughts when hearing the presentation and understanding a little bit
Yes.
more, or clearly showing that I don't understand a little bit more, ways of potentially looking at other alternatives. I will say, you mentioned raising the price 50 cents.
Right.
That's intriguing, because it's still lower than the other cost, but it does bring in more additional revenue. So that might be something worth discussing a little bit more.
I just think any more that we can bring in, any more revenue that we can bring in, especially at this time, is very helpful without hurting clients too. And, that's about all I'm saying. But I'm really, I can calm down now.
I disagree, but I get back, Mr. Chair.
I just want to remind the board that we have a very lengthy meeting.
No, we'll be good.
But also further to acknowledge that the chair of the meeting following this had a lot of questions. But, no, yeah, just real quick, I won't take up a lot of your time. One, thank you, Vince, because he's kind of been leading the charge, and certainly had not just the expertise, but the passion as well, so thank you for that. Josh, I think your comments were well taken. I really kind of connected with those I'm still grappling, trying to figure this out, and so makes me even more appreciative of board members like Vince, who can kind of take the reins on things that I don't understand. And so I did learn a little bit today until Josh started talking. And now
It's
I'm
a
back.
common thread.
And now I'm back in the muddy thing. But to add to that mud just a little bit, what I kept coming back to is issues my mother recently had with car repair. And taking the car to the dealership, but then needing a ride home. And she's 89, but she's very independent at 89. And so, right, it's not uncommon for dealerships, you drop off your car, and they van pool you in.
Yeah.
And so, but then, when your car is ready, now it's the opposite, right? Now it's all individual getting you back to that common location. And I think that's part of the struggle we have here is the consumer is time sensitive on getting to their destination. I've got a doctor's appointment, I'm trying to get to work. So that's challenging there, but then they're all going to common places of interest. And then getting home, while we all want to get home, it's not nearly as time sensitive as getting to work. And so I'm wondering, is there a way, instead of being resident focused, you're kind of common area focused? And it works better, because that's where your van pool will work. That I don't need to be home in 15 minutes, so yes, you can drop 2 other people off first. They're a little more flexible with that. But also just giving the marketing we have in the US primarily, we've really, really molded consumers to be very consumer driven. Right, you can have 60 different toothpastes to choose from, right?
I still can't find one.
Aisles of bread. Not trying to find the differences between the toothpastes is impossible. So I really like this morning's presentation and conversation. And I really did appreciate Josh's thoughts, because I'm more of a conversationalist, meeting, workshop kind of person anyway, so I like kicking ideas around. Sometimes that does mean that meetings run long, and we might not think, but it's the ideas that get kicked around. And every once in a while, you're going to get that blind squirrel that finds that nugget, and you go, oh, that's a great idea. It's something to run forward. But thank you for this. It sounds like we are on the right track. But continuing to look at ways that even though we're on the right track and we're doing things better, not to be comfortable in that scenario. Can we always get better? And I agree that I do like that increase in revenue. Even if it's 50 cents per, it can expand. So anyway, is it okay, guys, if we move on?
Come on.
The only thing, if I may just add,
Yes.
so the quorum of the finance committee said that the 50-cent increase in revenue or cost per ride was interesting notion. So I think we should ask to have that taken up at a later date.
Yeah.
And see what that might look like.
We will investigate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to make that official.
I like it, I like it,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so now we are gonna move on. Yes,
Move
sir.
approval of minutes.
Second.
Oh, do we need to do that? Are we there?
Actually,
Yes.
Action item for presentation number 4. It is the minutes. Thank you very much. I'll be more than happy to entertain a motion to approve the
Move approval
minutes.
of minutes.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See, look. Moving right along, that was unanimous, everyone. 4B, elect a vice chair with vice chair of our finance committee, Richard Bennett, leading PSTA board. We need to elect a new vice chair. Are there any volunteers or nominations?
I'm gonna nominate, who was on this committee?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Rachel, who's not here?
Dan Frackie.
Patty Reed, Dan Saraki,
Brian Scott.
Brian Scott.
I nominate Dan Saraki, mayor of Oldsmar.
Yeah, and I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Dan.
Now, we have to
He
do
told
it.
us on the airplane that
Don't
he
we
was
have to
gonna
do it?
chair.
No, it's because Richard Bennett.
I understand that.
So,
We don't have another meeting till next year though, right?
but the chair is 2 years?
I think they're 2-year and they can re-up,
Right,
so
you have to know that.
that's fine.
I imagine the vice chair is gonna be like a partial term to match up with the chair, vice chair selection.
I understand.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I've got another year at this?
Yeah. Good.
No, you have another year at this.
Oh, my mistake. Very excited. And again, congratulations, Dan. Actually, I'm very excited about that. Dan's a good man. The SEIU labor agreement, item 4C. James Bradford, Chief Operations Officer, will present the proposed supervisor's labor agreement to be recommended for ratification.
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, Chair Gow. Thank you very much, and good morning to our Finance Committee members and to all of you all here. James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer with PSDA, as most of you all know by now. So I'm always pleased to be able to present this topic to you all because it means we did it. We did it again. We were able to sit down with one of PSDA's 2 unions and reach at least what we call tentative agreement. Full ratification of this doesn't take place until we get to the board meeting. But first, I need to present to you all and then hopefully seek your approval on a 3-year agreement for wages and working conditions with recommendations to the board. So that's what we'll do. Again, working on this labor agreement that I have in my hand. This is PSDA's smallest union that's here, represented by SEIU. This is our supervisory unit of 30 people. I would like to say, because this kind of reminds me of something before I continue, because the mood has filled me to speak on it, I would like to give condolences to the friends and family of Clinton R. Forbes Sr. He was the CEO of Palm Trans from 2015 to 2023, age 55, and was laid to rest earlier this week. He was our immediate past chair for the Florida Public Transportation Association, FPTA, did a lot of great things in Florida, was a leader, a creator, and an innovator, and of course impacted us nationwide, is well known throughout our entire industry. So I would like to just give condolences and sympathies to the Palm County community, West Palm Beach area, and Palm Trans. As you know, we're all in this together, our fellow transit agencies. Is a very good dear friend and CEO friend of my boss, Brad Miller here. And the reason I'm thinking of him is because as creative and innovative as he was, he did what we do. He spoke to city council, he presented to his board members, he would be presenting to committee members. Whenever we would get done with one of these, he was also believed in best practices and what are other agencies doing. He wanted to see our agreement. And we would send it over to Palm Trans. What did you all do? How did you all resolve your supervisor agreement or your contract, your labor contract with the bus operators? And we will still send that over, right, Trish? We'll still send that over to Palm Trans. And then when because we compare notes, we try to see how each other are doing. And the other thing, and I will run through this because I know, Chair, we have a long agenda, and then I will excuse myself because today is Great American Teach-In Day, and I believe we, the PSDA team, are going to be at 6-7 schools across the county today. I'm assigned to Sawgrass Lake Elementary, so I'll be talking to young kids anywhere from VPK to fourth grade. And I gotta be honest with you, we do get jitters and butterflies, some of us, before we present to you on committee day or board day. I was more worried last night about presenting to these kids, and I still am. I've been up since 2:30. They're little kids, and I'm afraid. So when I get done here, I'm gonna go prepare and make sure they're entertained as much as I can. Julie, I'm gonna do the best I can.
You'll be great.
Where was I? Sorry, I'll get going. My boss is like, where's he going? Supervisory unit represents one of two unions, 30 supervisors. That's 24 positions in transportation, 6 positions in maintenance. And we reached full tentative agreement on October 19th with this booklet. What do we do? I want to give you a little bit of behind the scenes. The information's in your packet, the updated labor agreement's in your packet, so I won't just sit here and read these slides to you. What we do, if you picture union negotiations, folks will cram into a room for hours. Maybe the mood is up and down. We will swap proposals on wages and working conditions, and then we'll try to agree, is it gonna be for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years? Since the pandemic, we've actually been doing this via Zoom, which has been a lot better. We used to just stare at each other in a conference room for hours and then just see which side would blink, and we would get tired and we would come up with a date to meet next. Zoom is a lot more efficient. We're able to audio and video record ourselves. Everybody has screen time, and then when we go into Zoom webinar mode, some of the other folks, the other supervisors who have an interest in this, even if they're not at the bargaining table, they can listen in, they can watch it live. And if they see something from their union reps, they can go back and say, hey, listen, you need to bring this up to James Bradford at the next session, or maybe dig in and fight harder there. And again, we have an audio video recorded, and we're able to share the screen. It's just been a lot more efficient. On our team, we have our Director of Human Resources, Trish Collins. We have our Director of Maintenance, Henry Lacasting, and our Director of Transportation, Greg Bracken, and our Deputy Director, who's not here, Joe Cheney. And then we'll sit across from Joseph Brenner, who I believe he's coming out of North Florida. But again, he didn't have to drive because he's on Zoom as the rep here for PSDA. And then we'll have the supervisor appointees sitting at the table across from us. So we sit down, we talk about working conditions. How is work assigned? Uniform allowance, tool allowance. How do you give out overtime? What rankings or seniority? If there's a hurricane and we assign people to EOC, which supervisors get to go do that detail? Everything you can think of in regards to the day in the life of a supervisor and how they manage their time, procedures, and their authority and their rights to do what they do. And then, of course, the most important thing that all 32, 33 Florida transportation agencies, or at least the ones that have a union, discuss by the end are the wages. Last time I presented for the supervisors, we only had a 1-year deal for the wages. I am pleased to announce to you all that we have reached agreement on a 3-year deal. It's going to be a 3% increase each year for the transportation supervisors and the maintenance supervisors. You'll recall, and I think some of you all voted back in March of 2021 for an increase for all of our bargaining employees, and certainly the supervisors benefit at a tune of 10% or greater just this past March 2021. So they are, where I believe they need to be amongst the transit agencies. They are keeping pace. So 3% each year with enhancements. What does that mean? For the transportation supervisors, it means they'll get 3% each year. The additional thing that they were able to get was we added a step conversion. They never had that before. If you're a brand new supervisor, you just got your beginning rate, and then you would try to get your 2, 3, 4% each year, and you would never catch other people. Now, if you're a brand new supervisor, you can come in and you know you're going to reach a max pay rate in X amount of years. We started out with a 4-year conversion across 7 years, so it's 4 steps, 7 years. So that's the enhancements for the transportation supervisors in addition to their 3%. And for maintenance supervisors, their 3%, they get to enhance, they get to better themselves through additional education in the form of ASC certification. They can take a class, take a test. They have that on the resume. No one can take that from them. We offer up to 8 certifications at 25 cents a cert. So now they can boost their pay another 1, 2% or better. If they get all 8, that's an extra $2 an hour for their pay. So 3% each year with enhancements. They were very happy with it. This is the transportation supervisor slide. I won't go through all of this. What you see is the minimum rate all the way to the maximum rate. Each of the columns represents the fiscal year. So this takes us through the next fiscal years. There's the step increase plan. Now, if you're hired today at PSDA as a new supervisor, you'll start out at $31 an hour. And then that's your progression. The other thing, and actually, just while I'm thinking about it, these two supervisors that are pictured here, one is Liz Green, and she lost her battle with an ailment last year. One of our great supervisors for over 10 years, and then Dave Fry, pictured lower left, lost a battle with an ailment this year as well. So, it's been tough. You have hundreds of employees. Unfortunately, we celebrate new life and folks giving birth, but we also say goodbye to folks, and it's just something that we have to deal with. So that was not easy. This is the maintenance slide. There are 3 columns of their progression from FY24 to FY26, minimum, min, and max. I won't go through all of these. These are in your packets. But this just gives you a description. If I want to take an ASC certification class, what those are, like engine repair, for example, or automatic transmission. Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you. Double bless you. Contract highlights, again, this just gives you an idea of what each side was really going for and what they got. The key to successful negotiations, and as Brad always says, is if each side kind of gets some of what they want, maybe not all, and then walks away a little bit, kind of leaving some things on the table, but both sides can kind of reach mutual agreement. Really, we're all winners here. I just kind of have that to highlight. The biggie is the 3-year deal, because we don't have to come back and do this next year. And next year, we have to focus on the larger union, which is our bus operators, technicians, and our customer service representatives. So in conclusion, I am seeking your approval for a 3-year working conditions and wage increase plan for our supervisor union. Again, one of 2 unions, represents only 30 people out of 500 plus bargaining employees that work here at PSDA. SEIU, they voted in favor of this last week, 27-3, so 90% or better. And again, this is within our projected budget forecast, not only within this year, but over our next 3 years. So that's always a good thing to be fiscally responsible there, but also to figure out a way where we can kind of keep the employees happy and they believe we're doing right by them. And with that, I'll leave it there and take any questions you all may have.
Any short questions?
Yeah, one comment and one question. First off, if you can get 90% of people to agree on anything, you've already done a remarkable job. So,
Amen to that.
fantastic. In looking at the summary, though, in the packet, we talk about the 4-step progression plan. There's an automatic pay buffer between frontline employees. Can
Yes.
you explain
Absolutely.
how that works?
Very important to the supervisors to kind of make sure they have a cushion between the top operator rate and coming in at an entry-level supervisor. So they wanted to make sure that, there wasn't a point in time where the bigger union always bargains after them, and where it could be a situation where the top technician 3 rate or the top bus operator rate is more than the entry-level supervisor rate. And then that's maybe kind of a disincentive to recruiting and bringing in new blood. So what that will mean is next year, whatever raises we give to the bus operators, there will be this 5% differential between that top rate and then the lowest supervisor rate. And it'll just go in automatically.
Okay.
Should they catch. Right now, they're probably about 5% apart now.
So there is a potential that it will be greater than the 3% increases that we have?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and that's just for the tier 1? or-
Just for tier 1. It won't bump up everyone.
Okay,
Yeah. That's a great question, though.
thank you.
And these will be retroactive, if we get final approval December 6th, they'll be retroactive to October 1st. We try to get these done before September 30th, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer.
Just very quick, we go back a couple slides where
Yes,
it
sir.
goes to the hourly wage progression from current, go right there, go back to the other way.
This
There you
one?
go, right there.
Yeah.
Right there. And, the ASE certification, I think is wonderful. I mean, it's a wonderful program.
Yes, sir.
We're proposing here. And Henry, I guess one of y'all can answer this. with the advent of more electric buses coming, is there any kind of differentiation between this? Does this include the electric bus training too?
Take that one.
I'm really not that.
We're incorporating electric bus training, and ASC is also incorporating electric bus certification. It'll be about a year or two before it catches up.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
That's a great question. You're right, with the increasing technology, so
Yeah,
trying
right.
to keep up with
All
it.
right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for the vouching. That was my question as well. Was there any of these certifications or courses focused on EVs? But I guess that's coming. Thank you, James, for the presentation. It was great. I certainly echo the same comments regarding the percentage that voted in favor. You know, the ones that voted against, were there any really glaring concerns?
Not that SAU shared with me. I think we see this in every vote where there's the holdouts that say, oh, you could have gotten more.
Right.
And there will just be a sinking fist into the sea of, you could have gotten more, So, luckily, the majority are kind of see it and say, okay, I think you all did the best you could there, and, we're in favor of it. Yeah, but no, I didn't answer your question yet, not that I heard specifically.
Very good, thank you. Do I have a motion to recommend approval of this agreement?
Move approval?
Second?
I'll second
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you, everyone.
Very much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go be afraid
Hey,
of
good luck.
little kids
that. All
going.
right.
Yeah.
Just remember, don't get too close to it.
Wear body armor or chainmail, something, I don't know. All right, next up, Vanpool. Speaking of Vanpool, Al Burns. All right, Al. Director of Procurement will present the procurement and recommended contract for Vanpool program, provider for the Vanpool program. Al, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Al Burns, your highly motivated procurement director. Last couple of months, you've heard my boss, Debbie Lee, has come up and speak about the Vanpool, so I'll be very brief this morning. In April of 2010, T-BARTA, they started the Vanpool service, and it's been going very, very, very well thus far. Just as a friendly reminder, Vanpool is about 15 commuters who go back and forth from the same starting point to the same destination point on a weekly basis. There's a customer fee that's based on the distance of work and how many people and gas and tolls and all those things are considered. Participants in the Vanpool program may also sign up for the Emergency Ride Home program that ensures that riders are not stranded at work in case of an emergency. In the action item, you'll see that that's contingent upon successful negotiations. Yesterday, I was in negotiations with the Off-War Enterprise, Lisa Florida, and they are going to absorb the cost of that feature where T-BARTA in the past have paid for it. There are approximately 225 vehicles that are currently in the program. This is being, FDOT has requested that PSTA take over this program from T-BARTA, and we were more than happy to oblige that. In September, the board approved the agreement with FDOT for us to administer the program. In late December, we will start the Vanpool program, and yours truly over there, Ms. Gabrielle Donaldson, will be managing that program for us. On the procurement side, we did an RFP, and it was in accordance with all of our procurement policies and procedures. 16 companies downloaded this solicitation, and I was very, very excited to see that, people at least expressed interest. However, we received 2 proposals, and one was from Magic Bus. However, Magic Bus, airport van rental Vanpool company that operates over there at TIA, but they were totally non-responsive, and my team is going to reach out and coach them on what they need to do after this 2-year period is over. And we've also reached out to other members to find out why they didn't bid, why they didn't submit a proposal, and it was relatively due to the tight turnaround time of the solicitation process. In your package, you'll see the evaluation criteria that was used. And beneath that, you'll see that even though we received only one proposal, best practice here at PSTA is that we still evaluate that proposal to make sure that it's a good, solid proposal before we bring it to you. A responsibility check, has been done on them. We checked EPLS, SAMS.gov, which is something that, I'm in the Christmas spirit, I guess. SAMS.gov, which tells you if a company's been debarred or suspended. And also, we are in the process now of getting their audited financials from Enterprise, just to make sure that they're a good company to do business with, even though we know all about them. The fiscal impact of this, the VAMPL program will generate FTA funding to cover the cost. The VAMPL program will generate FTA funding to cover the cost. The VAMPL program last year generated $1.4 million of FTA funds, and these funds cover the cost of the program and currently budgeted at just over $1 million. The recommendation that I bring before you, Mr. Chair, and before I bring the recommendation, I will say that I have been meeting with Enterprise and doing a lot of the other stuff on the side in between my meetings with Enterprise, but have been meeting with Enterprise on a daily basis. And yesterday I had about a 2-hour conversation with them, so I'm confident that negotiations will be concluded by the time of the board meeting. But there's such a big gap, and the program ends. That's the reason why I'm bringing it to you today. So contingent upon successful negotiations, recommend approval of a 2-year contract with Enterprise Lisa Florida, LLC, doing business as Commute with Enterprise for a total contract amount not to exceed $3,600,000. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions? Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Who is the current provider for T-BARDA?
The same.
Okay, so it's Enterprise?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What happens to the excess funds received? Where does that money go?
Well, that goes to PSTA for federally eligible projects.
Fantastic. And then you mentioned that we only got 2 bids submitted. We only had 2 bids submitted because it was a really tight turnaround time.
Yes, sir.
So does it make sense to have a shorter contract of 1 year and go out and get, I mean, you had 16 parties interested or that downloaded the application. Does it make sense to give them that time to put in a competitive bid?
I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest with you. Most contracts that I bring before you are approximately about 5 years. So to me, this is a short contract. By the time staff, what I would say is this 2 years will give us time to evaluate it internally. I think a year is like a really, really quick time. By the time we get everything ramped up, and next thing you know, next year is here already. So I think 2 years is a good time for us to get acclimated to a new program that's being introduced to PSTA, find out how we can enhance it, and then I would say, when we go through the procurement process, I would probably put this out maybe 6 to 4 months ahead of the contract expiration. So for that, now that I think about it, I think 2 years is relatively a good time frame, because in a year and a half, we'll be going back out anyway. And if you just did it for a year, 6 months from now, we'd be going, and I think Enterprise, I think there might be a difference in rates if we did it for a shorter period of time. Hopefully that answers your question.
So you think there might be a difference in rates, which I would expect being a shorter contract, but then also you're expected to gain further knowledge in the administration of that contract so that our RFP for the next round will be a little bit more tailored to our needs or what we're seeing in the program at the time.
Absolutely. The scope of work that we developed, it was a hybrid from what T-BARDA did. So I think now with Gabby and a lot of other eyes, Greg Brackett, I'm looking over there, and Brad, of course, a lot more eyes will be on it and say, hey, let's just adjust this scope of work that we put out here. And lessons learned, I think, are always important.
And how does this contract compare to what they're currently doing, your current contract with T-BARDA?
I wish I had that. I know I've asked for that, and as recent as last week and this morning, and I'm still waiting on T-BARDA to provide me what their annual spend was with them.
Well, it's at $400 per van and $450 over the last number of months that we've just extended out the contract. which actually helps to, I think, incentivize more as far as the subsidy goes for that, you know, to the actually Vanpool user. And one of the things that when we were taking this over and FDOT talked to us, they said, you're not going to get another, you know, person bidding on it. And I was like, we've got highly motivated Al Burns over here, and he's already working it with everything. It's a huge, when you think of 224, 25 vans today, that's a lot for somebody to come in and just build up.
Right.
This is a niche that Enterprise currently has, but I think even doing it a year ahead of time because of the shortages in vehicles and UAW workers going on strikes, you know, if we were to bring in somebody else, they would need a significant amount of time to ramp up, but we love the competition. So I think we really need to work the competition piece over the next 2 years, as well as the lessons learned on our end.
I was gonna ask, do you remember when you led the procurement for T-BARTA, whatever number of years ago, how many bids they got?
I believe they only got one.
They did. I was here, I don't think Al was, but it was only one.
Doing my research, they only received one, and it was Enterprise. And like Debbie said, I've really been, competition is everything that we're all about, so, and you know what competition does, it helps drive prices, pricing.
Okay, thank you.
Just a few quick questions. Right, that 16, when it went out for bid, was it for a 2-year contract at the time?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that short contract period played a role in, and was it just a turnaround time to get us the information from the vendor point of view?
Well,
Or,
we asked, and that was the response that we received. So I mean, I could do a hot take, but I prefer not to. I think it was really due to, we released it in September and we're already here.
Right.
And that is, by procurement standards, that's a quick turnaround.
I wonder if it would have been 1 year, what you might have gotten, because it gets to a point where the vendor goes, you know, it's just not worth my effort to put that package in, and even if I win the bid, 3 or 6 months from now, I gotta do
Yeah,
this
exactly.
again.
Yes, sir, good point.
And so maybe the 2 years is the right framework. What is the current contract at T-BARTA? How long was that?
I believe it was a 5-year contract.
5 years? And is that what we might think about in 2 years?
Yes, sir,
Extending that?
definitely. If not longer, to help drive prices down.
Okay. And it's contingent, and is the goal then, because this is gonna go to the entire board, is the goal then is to clear up any contingent upon the successful negotiations by the time it gets to the entire board?
My goal that I'm working daily is to get contingent upon successful negotiations removed from that action item. And I'm working with legal, their legal, staff, a whole bunch of people, and we're gonna get this I can assure you, we're gonna get this across the finish line prior to the board meeting.
As a board, I'm concerned about that, but as a committee chair, I'm not concerned because there's a fallback for us.
Is there something substantial that was still to be negotiated once we get to December 6th, the board meeting, then we would?
Yeah, we're not
We would delay it.
Right, okay, all right. Those are all the questions, concerns I have. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a move for approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Congratulations. Okay, Flamingo Fair's payment MOU with Hart. Debbie Leo, CFO, will present the negotiated memorandum of understanding for our consideration. Debbie, good morning.
Good morning, Chair, and best committee ever. Last month, what I brought to you was an extension of the current contract as we wrapped up, actually last month, I had wrapped up all the salient points in the negotiations with this. This is a project that has been led by Hart. Hart is the head of the regional working group, which right now just consists of PSTA and Hart itself. The action item today is to approve this MOU, and this MOU has in it language so that it provides the structure for all the contracts related to the Flamingo project. Items like the software developer, our merchant services, anything related to the back office, anything related to contracts with Flamingo. In addition, it's going to provide a framework for the revenue sharing and the cost allocation. Revenue sharing was the easy piece, because if you get on and you tap here in Pinellas County, we're getting the money. If you tap in Hillsborough, they're getting the money. That was the easy part. What was challenging was on the cost allocation piece. So we sat down, went through everything, took any emotions out of it, and said, what makes sense? Now, I am not going to make you read this chart. It is not a test of your vision, but it is all the elements, it's in your package, but it has all the elements of the costs that we took a look at. And we basically said, let's start out with if there's items or units that relate to us individually as PSTA or you as HART, you are going to pay for those items. Prime example are the validators on the buses. There are other costs that are fixed costs. So for everything else, we said if it's fixed, PSTA and HART are going to split it 50-50. If it's a variable cost, and I'll use merchant service as an example, if we end up having more people pay with credit card, whether they're loading their Flamingo card, whether they're paying with their debit or credit card, then we will be paying more for it. I think this past month was the first month on the open payments, which is your debit credit card. PSTA surpassed HART. Not that it's a competition, but we've surpassed HART in having the number of taps related to open payments. So we essentially sat down, knocked all of this out, and then all of the invoices will be split based on this going forward. We're going to take a look at it, not renegotiate it, but just take a look at it should anything new be added. Matter of fact, PSTA, as you know, is very innovative, and we tend to come up with the new ideas related to Flamingo. So when those types of things come up, whether it's from HART or from PSTA, we will pay for it. If the other partner wants to buy into it, then they can split the cost with us 50-50. So that's sort of how we did this going forward, and this just presents the basis of it for the years to come. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Move rule.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you so
Congratulations,
much.
Debbie, just that easy. And thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I think, Brad, are you up next? No, Diane.
I'm Diane first.
Fantastic. All right, claim settlements. Last action item is yay, given the time. Approval of 2 claim settlements. Diane Randall, Director of Risk Management, will present this item. Diane, good morning.
Good morning. You have the description of everything in your packet, so I'll be quick because I know we're short on time. The first claim settlement is with Rachel Gore for $150,000. This was a 3-vehicle rear-end collision where we hit her and she ran into someone in front of her. As a result of that, she sustained a neck injury that did require surgery, and her medical expenses were approximately $173,000 with outstanding balance of $142,000. The second accident is Karen Duran, and this accident happened when she was riding her bicycle on Gulf Boulevard, and she ran into the bus. Now, I'm sure you're all asking, if she ran into us, why are we settling the claim? There are circumstances, there's actually legal language regarding the clearance that a vehicle is to give to a bicyclist. The area where this happened on Gulf Boulevard is very narrow. The bike lane is narrow and the lanes themselves are narrow. You're supposed to give a 3-foot clearance to the bicyclist. I don't know that that's even possible in that area. So even though she ran into us, there is legal precedence for us to go ahead and settle this. She had a very severe injury. The bus did run over her arm, her left arm. She has a visibly bad injury. She's had multiple surgeries. Her medicals are over $400,000, and there's an outstanding balance of about $95,000. Her elbow cannot even fully extend anymore, so she's got a very severe injury. So both of these settlements are within the established claim file reserves, and both will end our responsibility for future claims. So we are recommending approval of claim settlements in the amount of $150,000 with Rachel Gore and $175,000 with Karen Duran. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Looking for a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Aye. What? Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh,
Go ahead.
and I usually don't. But Diane, real quickly, because of the narrow passage on that corner road, is there any training or conversations to staff, the drivers, on how to handle?
I would have to talk to transportation about that directly to see what they're doing. I know they are aware of the requirements. It's difficult there with, you have a bicycle that's moving and you have the bus that's moving, so it's just a difficult area to be in. So,
As a bicyclist, having a bus come up beside you
mhm.
is scary.
It is,
Very
it is.
scary.
And when there's small,
And when they don't have the opportunity to react,
right.
right? They're stuck in their lane and there's nothing they can do.
Mhm.
So anyway, maybe slow down until you get to where, I know that slows down time, but safety first. Thank you, Diane, very much. All right, information items. Brad, we'll dive into PSTA's performance data. Brad?
Nope.
Nope?
AB Beach.
Benchmarking.
Benchmarking update.
Oh, benchmarking update.
Yeah.
5
Oh, dang, thank you.
This is my favorite presentation. So I'm very excited, and I'm glad. I see Commissioner Oliver there, and I saw Commissioner Fig Sanders, even the Planning Committee. So PSDA, as you may know, is a member of the what's called the American Bus Benchmarking Group, which is 25 transit agencies that compare and get together and collaborate and learn from each other best practices in what has become, in my opinion, an incredibly powerful network. It is so positive, trying to learn from each other and take best practices. Almost everything we bring to the Finance Committee, new thing that we do at PSA, we learn from one of these other systems. It is great. So the report is enormous, and so what I've tried to pull together is a couple of different kinds of metrics. Metrics on how we use data and benchmarking within PSTA. I got some information about what we're maybe still challenging, what maybe we're not, need to keep working on, what we're great at. And then I also threw in some things that are related to Representative Cheney's bill about PSTA, or just issues that I heard over and over in Tallahassee, or that are kind of resident in that bill. Benchmarking as a concept is like Moneyball, where you are using data to constantly focus on improvements to your agency. These are the transit agencies, and if you correlate these cities with who wins the awards and who is doing it, it's these groups. These cities are looking to better their transit system, and by participating in benchmarking and comparison, all of these folks are really doing some pretty innovative things. The program that we participate in is administered by the Imperial College of London. They are like a benchmarking guru. They have a whole institute for benchmarking around the world, and they run 6 or 7 different benchmarking groups on transportation, but on aviation, on rail, on the 10 largest metro systems in the world. It costs $25,000 a year for PSTA to be part of this, and then they do a fantastic job of putting all these graphs together. I'm going to show and collecting all the data in the most apples to apples best way I've seen that's out there. And then you have an annual conference. This was in Jacksonville. And And there's the picture from Jacksonville. That was in September. This is the group that met from all those cities. And this is the Jacksonville Transportation Center. So it's great to go to all these different transit systems because then you kind of get to see, you know, what's going on in Jacksonville. They're doing some really innovative things there. So the first graph I'm going to show you is of ridership. And this was something that is being claimed at the legislative delegation meeting, that our ridership is down and is never going to come back. This is a graph that was produced on our relative comparison of ridership recovery since the pandemic. How close are we back to 2019 levels compared to the other 25 cities? And you can see on this graph, these are all the 25 cities, and the SP is PSTA. We are, you know, about a third up toward one of the better systems as far as recovery, right around 80%. In 2023, PSTA had 10.4 million rides. That is out of our 40-year history, a little bit better than the median. It was the 17th best year in PSTA history for ridership. That was fueled by incredibly the highest ever access ridership, and also Sunrunner certainly played a part in that. But all of, if you look at them in the reports, most of our routes do have increased riders. You can see that I have all these bars blank except for PSTA. That is a key piece to benchmarking. It doesn't really matter which one of these is Spokane, Washington, unless you're maybe, or if Commissioner Saraki was here, he would care about which one's Buffalo. But other than that, it does not matter. It just matters where PSTA. And so they require you to make the other ones anonymous so that they don't get a call from a reporter. I heard down in Florida that we are bad at this or something. Because that's not the point. Although I will make one note. The only transit system in the group that is above their pre-pandemic ridership went fare free. It's Richmond, Virginia. And they made their whole system free, and they kept it free. And so they are seeing the growth in ridership. We use this data all the time for policy changes that you see at the committees. This is an issue that Commissioner Cox brought up a couple of months ago, where we made a change to our access program, reducing the reservation pre-scheduled time before you could make your reservation for a ride 30 days in advance. And then we cut that back when our credit card company said we couldn't take credit cards that far in advance, that the maximum was 7, so we have changed it to 7. This chart is of the paratransit systems. And you can see these little numbers show the pre-scheduled times and days that all of these cities allow. And PSTA was the only one with 30. And then this is the percentage of all your rides that are no-shows. When people schedule 30 days in advance, they forget, and they don't remember, and then they no-show. And then that costs PSTA money, and it's very inefficient to send the van to somebody's house and they're not there. Or they're like, oh no, I canceled that doctor appointment 2 weeks ago. So we have changed now to 7 days, and we're hopeful that the no-show rate will go down. You can see we're way above on that. Same thing, we were just talking about with Diane about ways in which we might improve things. This has been on our scorecard for a while. We were dead last a couple of years ago of all the cities in the number of accidents we had. And we have made steady progress through a lot of hard work. Diane meets with the transportation folks and talks about claims and issues like Gulf Boulevard and things like that to just constantly remind our staff about safety. And we have moved from bottom to right around the average in total accidents. Things that we are still working on, we still need to focus on, and they're on our scorecard for this reason. On-time performance. On-time performance, PSTA is still lagging. Lately, we've gotten better. If you look at the monthly reports, those are more updated. But one thing I found out when diving through the data, layover or extra time, we can be more on time if you put a lot of fat in the schedule. If you put a lot of extra time in the schedule, the buses will be technically more on time. The customer probably wouldn't be any happier, but PSTA ranks very low in the percentage of extra time, of layover time in our system. We could increase this and probably see an increase in on-time performance, but that just costs. That's not very efficient. We're one of the most efficient systems because if the buses are just sitting there, it's not carrying passengers. This gets to one of the key pieces of Representative Cheney's bill is that PSTA costs need to be more efficient. We need to run like a business, right? You've heard that over and over. So this is where PSTA ranks on our operating costs compared to these other cities, down toward the bottom, below average, consistently below average, and this is an adjusted chart for inflation and for regional differences in wages. The wages are lower, still lower here in the Tampa Bay area than they are in like California and other places. So this accounts for all that, and still we are down in the bottom third. These four little bars for each city is 2019, 2020, 21, 22. And you can see a big spike in our cost from 21 to 22. That was the wage increase to our bus operators to be competitive. And you can see many cities did that same thing. In fact, they have a chart on that. This is change in driver wage over the past 5 years. And you can see we had a big spike where every system had a higher than average to stay competitive with our costs. And then this light blue bar is with, taking out inflation. So whether or not, even though the board approved a major increase to our operator wages, did we keep up with inflation? We made a little bit of a headway, once you back out inflation, which is good. And then just generally on cost, what I like about the benchmarking is they put this chart together, and this is in your packet. But this looks at all sorts of different cost measures, from fuel to administrative overhead and all these different things about how we rank. And then further to the left, you are low cost, high efficiency, and further to the right, you're high cost, low efficiency on this chart. And we are down toward the bottom. It's one of the most efficient, low cost transit systems that there is out there. What are we awesome at? We have an awesome, mighty maintenance team. We are number one in the number of miles per staff hour to maintain the buses. That's awesome, and that's a testament to Henry and his team and the great technicians we have. We're also fantastic at running the buses without having breakdowns. Number one out of all the cities in how far we can run the buses. Now, I will say that Henry, we are blessed by being in Florida, or California. The warm, nice weather states are all these ones above average when you look at the details on what cities, we don't have snow and ice causing our buses to get worse. So that's a nice feature. And I think this is my last slide. This is just the chart I showed to the committee earlier. In paratransit, our customers are the happiest. PSTA ranks number one in customer satisfaction of our PSTA Access service. I mean, more than the other cities. That's largely, I think, fueled by our Mobility on Demand program where they get real-time rides. Most cities do not have anything like that. And our customers love that. But yeah, the way this chart is works is green means you gave PSTA Access a 9, on a scale of 1 to 10, a 9 or a 10. Orange is 7 and 8, and blue is 0 to 6. So we're very, very proud of that. It shows that our customers very much love our PSTA Access service. There's a lot more to that, but I'll leave it there.
Is there any questions?
Is this presentation going to be at the board level also?
I was thinking, yes, maybe. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it should, because I think there's a lot of folks that need to hear how we're doing within the bus benchmarking group. And then I think that is helpful in the arguments and conversations that we have when we go back to our own constituencies and boards as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
I echo that, and I also think that the delegation should hear this as well. Thank you for that very much. I know that we are short on time, over time. I did have some questions about the other performance worksheets that are there, but I won't hold those. Maybe talk to you offline.
Mr. Chair, can I give you a little real-time update here? So we recently instituted two new fare programs. On November 1st, we instituted a program in St. Petersburg that the city is paying for transportation disadvantage fares for people in St. Petersburg. In the first 13 days, 527 passes in St. Petersburg sold, or given out. And then the Veterans Program, which just started on Friday, as of yesterday, 165 veterans had signed up for that program. That's making good progress.
You know, the veterans, I'm certainly glad to hear that. Are we able to separate that out on how many of those rides are going to the VA or are disabled veteran related somehow by destination?
Or of disabled veterans?
Yeah.
I'm looking at Devin right now. Is that possible?
Is that just by destination? I know that that's,
We could do by route, yeah. So, yeah, the one that's going to the VA.
Proportion of usage on Route 18. I'm not sure how we can narrow it down to disabled, but I could certainly find a percentage writing on that.
Yeah.
You know, along those same lines, I think something that'd be interesting for me is knowing how many of those folks are new riders to the system. So if they had passes before and are now switching to the free ride, like noting that difference. Because if we're gonna have a program like this, one, the concern was that it was gonna eat up revenue because we're gonna lose some. But then two, the hope is that we're offering something to a constituency that was underserved, and they're now using the system as an added bonus or as a benefit to them. So it'd be interesting to see if that's, or did we just transition people from paying to non-paying, or were we able to actually bring more riders into the system and increase ridership?
Yeah. I think we'd probably do that with a survey at some time. We can look into that. Get the new ones.
It may even
Yeah.
be worth asking when we're enrolling folks, people, did they have a pass before
Yeah.
in the
That's all I'm
program, or?
thinking. Yeah.
right, so we are running long. So I just want to acknowledge that all the reports for the monthly financial statements, quarterly reports, ridership performance data are all online for anyone to review. But I will look for adjournment.
One point I just wanted to mention.
Yes.
UPass is up 84% from September of last year to
Yeah.
September of this year.
And those are the questions that I had that I was going to ask.
I know.
Yeah, I got questions.
I just didn't
about
want to let it go without being said.
Thank you.
All right,
Big fans of UPass.
move adjournment.
All righty, our next meeting will be January 17th at 9 a.m. All right, and we are adjourned.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, sir. We got through it.
No, you didn't want to.
Well, and this is why we needed to move the access conversation.
That opportunity.
Yeah.